Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'll be making this beautiful dress. I'll be using 3 yards of fabric to make this dress. So if you're here for that, keep on watching and let's get started. I'll be drafting the pattern first before cutting it on my fabric. So I'll be working on the front half length. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to minus 5 inches from the top because this is an off shoulder dress. From my shoulder to my waistline is 15 inches. I marked down 16 inches because I added 1 inch to the 15 inches as my seam allowance. So I'm going to roll out a straight line on the dot I made, which is going to serve as my waistline. So on the top of the paper I'm going to mark my bust measurements divided by 4 plus 3 inches seam allowance. Then on my waistline I'm going to mark my waist measurements divided by 4 plus 3 inches seam allowance also, and I'm going to connect both dots together, the one at the top of the paper and the one on the waistline, like this. Now I'll be taking my darts from the center of the paper. I'm going to mark down my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 plus half inch allowance, that is 4.5 inch. I just marked it on my waistline and I'm going to mark it at the top of the paper, and I'm going to connect both dots together on a straight line. Now I'm going to cut off the excess parts of the paper. So I'm going to fold the darts to this other side of the paper like this. So I'm trying to fold it properly, so I'm going to arrange it well and fold it properly. So after folding, this is what it looks like. You must ensure that the center will be at that side which I just touched. So I'm going to be taking my measurements on it. So still minusing the 5 inches, I'm going to take from the measurement from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches, and the measurement from my shoulder to my under bust, which is 13 inches, and I'm going to roll them out on a straight line and label them. So on my waistline, that is the last line, I'm going to be marking half an inch down at the center of the fold. I'm going to be marking half an inch. Then on my under bust, I'm going to mark 0.75 like this. I'm going to mark it at the center as well. I'll not mark anything on my bust point. Then at the top of the paper, I'm going to go in by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect everything together like this. You can use your free hand to do it. Then I'm going to cut off the excess part of the paper. So this is what I have after cutting it. So at the side of the paper like this, I'm going to be coming down by 2 inches for my armhole, and I'm going to connect it to the top in a slanted way like this, and I'm going to cut that part out. On the center paper, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch from the middle like this, and I'm going to connect it to the other side in a curvy way for my neckline. So I don't want my neckline to just be straight like that. You can give your neckline whatever shape you want to. So I'm going to connect it to this other side, and I'm going to cut it out also. So after this, I'm going to label both papers. The one at the side that I'm going to label first is my side front, and this other one is my center front. So I'm done with the front half length. For the back half length, I'm going to mark my zipper allowance of 1.5 inch at the top of the paper, and I'm going to connect it down on a straight line, and I'm going to label that part as my zipper allowance. So I took out 5 inches at the top of the front, so I'm also going to take out the 5 inches and I'm going to mark the length of 16 inches which we took at the front as the waistline. So I'm going to roll out the dot on a straight line, and that is going to serve as my waistline. From the zipper allowance, I'm going to mark down my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I just marked that down on the waistline and I'm going to connect it to the top on a straight line. Then I'm going to go in by half an inch on both sides of the line. Then I'm going to connect it back to this other line in a slanted way like this. So this is what the dart for the back looks like. So at the top of the paper from the zipper allowance, I'm going to mark down my bust measurement divided by 2 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then at the waistline also, I'm going to mark down my my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to check the inches for the data and I'm going to replace it back at the side, and I'm going to connect the point I marked on the waistline to the point on the top of the paper. So I'm going to cut off the excess part of the paper. So for the neckline, you can decide to slant it. I came down by half an inch for mine, but I did it off camera. So go ahead and slant the neckline for the back if you want to. So I'll be making this adjustment of my zipper allowance to avoid back bulge. On my waistline, I'll be going in by half an inch on my zipper allowance. I just marked down half an inch and I'm going to connect it to the top like this. So this is the necessary adjustment you need to make on your zip in order to avoid back bulge. And this is the other thing I'm going to be doing so that my zip will be balanced at the back and the back will be well fitted. So you can decide to skip this. On my zipper allowance line, I went up by 1 inch and the allowance I added to this was 2 inches. So I marked the allowance of 2 inches at the side and I'm going to connect it to the 1 inch I marked on my zipper allowance line in a slanted way like this. So I went up by 1 inch on my zipper allowance line and I connected it to the allowance of 2 inches I added to the side of the paper like this. So this is what I have. So I'm going to cut that part out. So after cutting it out, I will still cut out this half an inch from the paper. With this, I'm done with both the front and the back half length of the dress. So this is what I have. Now I'll be working on the skirt part of this dress. My fabric is already folded into 4. We use 16 inches as the half length. The total length of this dress is 54 inches. The actual length is 50 inches plus 4 inches allowance. So I'm going to mark the length I'll be using for the skirt part, which is 11 inches. So I'm going to mark 11 inches on the fabric like this and I'm going to connect it on a straight line. My fabric is already folded into 4 with my zipper allowance of 1.5 inch because I'll be cutting both the front and the back of the skirt together. So I'm going to connect the dot I've just made on the fabric on a straight line. So at the top of the fabric, I'm going to mark down my round waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. So the way I folded my fabric, the front piece is the one on the back piece. So the fabric is folded into 2 and my zipper allowance is down. I started taking my measurements on the front piece, ignoring the zipper allowance. I hope you guys understand. So from my waistline to my hip line is 8 inches, which I just marked down. I'm going to roll that point on a straight line, and I'll make sure it enters my zipper allowance like this. So on the line I just drew, I'm going to mark down my hip measurements divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to connect the waist measurement on my waist to the one on my hip line like this. Then I'm going to extend the hip measurements down like this. So from the top of my zipper allowance, I'm going to mark half an inch and I'm going to connect it to my hip line. I'm going to cut out the half an inch because I minused half an inch from my half length, and I want the zipper allowance for both the half length and the skirt parts to align. So I just marked out the half an inch and I cut it out. I'm going to notch my zipper allowance, I'm going to notch the center, and I'm going to cut off the excess parts of the fabric. So before I slant the side of the skirt, I'm going to pin down my zipper allowance together like this. I'm going to pin it to the bottom, and I'm going to arrange both the front and the back fabric on each other. So I've gone ahead to open up both the front and the back fabric. I make sure both right sides of the fabric are facing each other. So I'm going to pin both of them together so it will not move while I'm working on it. So the side of your skirt you want to curve can either be on the right or left side. You choose whatever side you want to. This is the side I want. At the base of the skirt, I'll be going in by 9 inches. Then at the side, I'll be coming down by 6 inches. Then I'm going to connect the 9 inches to the 6 inches like this. Then I'm going to cut this part out. So where I came down by 6 inches, you can decide to come down by 5 or 4 inches. It depends on how deep you want the effect to be on your dress. So I'm just going to cut this part out. So I've gone ahead to use my paper to cut my half length. So this is the center front and the side front. This is what they look like. So you ensure you fold your fabric into two before placing your center front on it. Then you are going to cut two sides as well. So I have one center piece and two side piece, one for the right side and one for the left side. So this is what they are looking like. So I'm going to open it up, and this is how I'm going to attach them to each other. So I'm going to place them like this. Is the one for the right side and this is the one for the left side. So I'm going to place them on each other like this. Then I'm going to sew it down following the shape. I'm going to sew it from the down part to the up following the shape of the fabric. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side as well. I have gone ahead to cut out the back piece also. My fabric was folded into two and I placed my paper on it. I slanted the neckline I told you guys earlier. So this is what the back piece is looking like. So what I'm going to do, I ensured that I notched my darts on my fabric from the paper, and I notched my zipper allowance as well. So I'm going to take in the darts. I've gone ahead to join the front piece together and I ironed it flat. This is what I have. I cut out a lining piece for it also. The lining piece is exactly as the main piece is. I've gone ahead to join them together and I'm going to use it to line it. So I'm going to place the two right sides on each other like this. I'm going to properly arrange it and I'm going to sew the neckline area round inward like this. I'm going to sew it round, then I'm going to turn it over to the right side, iron it, then I'm going to top stitch the both sides and the down parts. For the back, I've gone ahead to take in the darts for both sides, so I want to line the back as well. So I'm going to lose this zipper allowance I joined together. So this is the lining piece. I took the darts for the lining piece and the main piece separately. So I took the darts separately. So I'm going to lose the stitch. I made a loose stitch, a straight loose stitch on the zipper allowance. I'm going to lose it up and I'm going to use this fabric to line it. So I'm going to sew the neckline area and I'm going to sew the zipper allowance area inward. So these are the straps I'll be using for the sleeves. I have 4 straps. So the length of the strap is 13 inches each. You can make it as long as you want to. So I told you guys I was going to line the front piece earlier, but before you line it, you need to add the strap to it. So I'm going to place it at this point where I joined the side front to the center front. That part, I'm going to attach one of the straps to it. Make sure you attach the straps on your main fabric the way I'm doing mine. I'm going to attach the other one on the other side as well on my main fabric. After I do this, I'm going to place my lining piece on it. Before I line it, I'm going to place my lining piece on it and line the neckline area first. Then I'm going to iron it and turn it over to the right side, then top stitch the sides and the base of the half length. So I'm going to add the straps to the back piece as well. So my darts for the back is long to the neckline of the top, so I'm going to place the strap on the darts at the neckline. I'm going to pin it on my main fabric. I'm going to do this on the other side as well. Then I'm going to place my lining piece on it and line it. So I'm done lining the front piece and this is what is presently looking like. So I'm done with the back as well and this is what they are looking like. Now I'll be attaching the half length to the skirt part. So I'm going to face the right side of the front on the right side of the skirt and I'm going to attach it to the skirt. I'm going to do the same thing for the back as well. I'm going to place them on each other correctly and I'm going to attach both the half length and the skirt parts together. So if you want to add a dart to your skirt, make sure you add your dart to it before joining your half lengths. So I'm done joining both the half length and the skirt together and this is what is looking like for the front. And this is what the back piece is looking like. So I'm going to join my zipper allowance together. After I'm done pinning it together, I'm going to sew it on a straight line. So I'm going to face the two piece on each other, both the right sides facing each other, and I'm going to close up the sides with my body measurements. So I'm done closing both sides. I went ahead to lose the zipper allowance that I closed up earlier, and this is what I have. So I'm going to open it up like this, and I'm going to take my tape to measure the length of the base like this. So I'm going to take the tape from this end to the other end like this. So whatever I get there, I'm going to multiply it by 2 for my ruffles. If you have more fabric, you can increase it, you can multiply it by 3, or you can add more inches to whatever you get so that your ruffles will be full. So I'm going to cut out the ruffles now. So the length is supposed to be 27 inches, but I mistakenly cut out 23 inches. I took out 16 inches for my half length, then 11 inches for the skirt part, and the ruffles is supposed to be 27 inches, making the length 54 inches. So after cutting out the material, I ran a gather stitch at the top of the fabric. So this is the length. I told you guys that I mistakenly cut out 23 inches, so I have 23 inches here. So I ran the gather stitch at the top, and this is what is looking like. So I'm going to attach it to the base of my dress. So I'm going to attach the ruffle from this end to the other end like this. After I'm done with that, I'm going to add my zipper to the back, then I'm going to hem the base of the dress, and that's it for this tutorial. So you can leave your questions in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you're not yet a subscriber. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.